Okay, so for your postcard design, I wanted to go over a couple of tips using a previous student example that was pretty good but had a few little mistakes. So the first thing you need to know is that you should always be sending me a screenshot of your finished product in InDesign so that I can see how it looked on your computer. The reason why is because I don't have a lot of the fonts that some of you might be installing custom for this card. So you can see all of these cool fonts that she had in this design. I don't have those fonts on my computer, and I don't want to install hundreds of fonts for every class for every student. So I'm going to leave them uninstalled. So it's not going to show up for me the way it shows up for you here. So it's always a good idea to take this screenshot. And that's also in case something goes wrong, like your file is corrupt, or even if, let's say, you turned it in on time and you had the screenshot date and time and something was went wrong, then you have this screenshot as proof that you had it completed at a certain point in time. So always send me a screenshot. In addition to the screenshot, mandatory for every single assignment is you should include your original InDesign file. That's the only way I can go in there and truly see how you were creating it and if you were creating it correctly. So if you don't have those two things, they're automatically going to be a deduction. Now, if you forget your InDesign file, I probably won't even grade it, just because it is a required that you send the actual InDesign file. Okay, so when I open this, you're going to see an error that happens here. And so this is another thing you need to be aware of. If you add images into your design, which you should be adding images to almost all of your designs, and you don't embed them, then it's going to come and say this document is missing a link. So this photo that she put into her postcard might have been on like her desktop, but my computer can't reach her desktop, so I can't see that photo. Now, if I click OK, it's going to show the photo. And then this is also saying I don't have the font she has, so I'm going to skip because I don't want to substitute. But you can see for this photo that it is very pixelated. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is a low quality photo, so it's going to be a reduction in points. Because if you're making a professional design, a postcard, you can't have a pixelated photo. So it's in your best interest that if you are creating something that has a photo, that you always put that photo in the project folder with your InDesign file and your screenshot, and you should put it in there before you add it to your InDesign document so that the link is correct. Now, if you put it in after and then you just, put the photo into your folder, that's okay, because I can still relink it using the links panel. I can click on your photo and then come here and say update link and then just drive to that folder. So that's absolutely okay, but I would prefer that you put it in your project folder before so that it doesn't take me a ton of time to grade assignments. But this is important because if you ever send InDesign files to a professional printer, you're going to cost yourself more money by taking more time where they have to email you and say, hey, this is missing all these files. Can you find them? And then they have to relink them. So it becomes a problem. And actually later in the course, you'll learn about something called packaging, which solves that issue. But for right now, just make sure any asset that's in your project is in the project folder to start with. Then just zip that folder and send the entire thing to me. Okay, so looking at her design, when you're setting up your postcard, make sure that you have included a bleed. So if we go to adjust layout, we have the bleed 0.125 inches. And your photo should go all the way out to the bleed. So that is the red line at the edge. And I don't know why hers isn't showing this right now. I'm going to have to figure that out, but you'll see a red line. You should take your photo all the way out to the red line. A bleed is the section outside of the document. So if this is the edge of the document right here, and this red line was right here, then this is going to be chopped off by a professional printer so that there isn't any white or margin on your design. But it also ensures that if for some reason when they're chopping your postcards and they're cutting off these edges, if it shifts a little bit in the cutter, you're not going to have unsightly white lines on the edges. So that's why we always include the bleed. So now in terms of design, for this front postcard cover, just simplify, guys. You don't have to make it so complicated. So this is like a semi-transparent photo, and I actually would just make it, it's a gorgeous photo and that's what we want to see. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. And then just like emphasize some, I'll actually show you the this is the one that I gave her as an example of just simplifying. So hopefully you can see this. So that was a gorgeous photo that she took. And so leave it in full color, emphasize maybe 1 or 2 words that are important, and you can do 2 different fonts that complement each other, or just keep it the same font so it's clean and consistent, and make sure it's just easy to read. So I put it down here in the corner where it has some darker colors so you can read the white font on top of it. And then in the back, this one's done really well. 4 lines for the address, a space for the stamp. You should leave this totally empty, totally white. You can take the lines off if you want to, and just remember that the lines should be spaced far enough apart for people with big handwriting. But over here, this is an example of where I don't have the font, and so this is how I would see it. So you don't want me to grade it just based on this. So that's again why you need to do the screenshot. So for this one, you can see that it is a marketing postcard. It's not a traditional postcard that's left empty so that somebody can write home. You can do that if you want to, but just make sure this isn't totally blank. You would want to leave it blank if people were writing on it, but you know, maybe you put a little bit of a design in the corner or something so it doesn't look generic. But for a marketing postcard, we are going to put some information on the back about whatever we're marketing. So this is where she's talking about the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, and she's emphasized some words, which is a good idea for, it's a good design trick. And then you always have a place where they can get more information. So if you have to make up a website, that's fine. But let's say you're doing a hot air balloon festival in your hometown and they actually have a website, it's not going to hurt anything to put that website there. So just make sure, last but not least, that your postcard is the correct document size. So this is 6 by 4 inches. So that is a traditional small postcard size. And make sure it is at print resolution. So when you're creating a new document, make sure you're going over to print. And then I just always change mine from picas to inches. And then make sure you have the sizes there. And here is your bleed. Okay, so I wanted to add one more thing to this video. Earlier we couldn't see the bleed lines, and the reason why is because if you go to the view menu and grids and guides, the guides were hidden. So to turn that back on, you can always use the keyboard shortcut that you see here. Mine looks like a Mac shortcut because I'm on a Mac. So if you're on a PC, it'll show the PC shortcut. But if you're doing this, if you're looking at your document and all these lines distract you, if you hit the W key on your keyboard, this will show you the print preview with a slight black line to show you where it will be trimmed by your actual printer or by your professional printer. If you're printing this on a desktop printer, you're always going to have the white margin. Just keep that in mind. So when we were talking about bleed before and taking the photo all the way out to the bleed, what I meant is that you need to take it all the way to this red line to ensure that it would work properly for a professional printer. So just an update there, that so you could see what the bleed lines look like and how to turn on and off the guides.